Hello, I'm just doing a rehouse. I was going to do my Nemesis as well, but they can only get me one of these tanks in. It's exactly the same as what my P.Fortis is in. All I've done is what I do for the exact same what I do for my P.Fortis female. Sorry if you can hear my doggy is howling. Um, Basically, I dampen one side, so that side, that half is been soaked in water. I've sprayed it all just to dampen it down a bit, but pretty much all I'm going to try and do is put it in. I'm going to take the hide out. Usually I don't use them hides, but they're quite good for humid teas. I don't know why they seem to work quite well for juvies. If it burrows, I'll probably just take it out if you don't use it. It's just here. It's quite a calm male. I'm grabbing this because I know it won't go for me. He's a bit skittish, but not overly bad. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put like that. It doesn't look like much, I know, but all he'll do is he'll go in there and he'll start a burrow. I'll move it into a corner a bit more. Yeah, he'll just start a burrow from that. He can easily get in that, and when he gets bigger, I'll probably just take it out because he'll have made a burrow. But that's just temporarily, really, because I haven't really got any coat bark that's suitable. Where are my tweezers? Where will I put my tweezers? Oh, they're here. I'm just going to put the ball in as well. I'm grabbing that with the tweezers because I don't know what his temperament's like too much. This shouldn't be too hard to do, but I've said this before, and what I'm going to try and do is just lift it and place it like that. I think this is better to do this with two hands. I'll be back in a sec, because I don't want to obviously injure the tea. Okay, back in a sec. It wasn't too hard, he did strike the tweezers, but be right. All I've done is basically the emphasis intermediates will be getting something similar to this. I had one tiny bit of bark left, but it's not tiny. But all I've done is like dug out the first bit. As you can see, not much, but he should start a burrow there because he does like to dig. That's why I've upgraded him. The humid species seem to do really well as juvies in these, because I've noticed humid species seem to like to burrow. They're perfect for dry species. Like my Chromatis can stay in it as long as it wants because it's not really, don't really want to burrow. Because I've noticed a lot of species that are kept dry, they don't really burrow, to be honest. They'll just go and hide and be happy. But humid species seem to like to burrow. Well, humid large species. This is not talking about dwarfs. This is talking about large tarantulas like Gramstolas, Nandus, stuff like that. They seem to like to have what's the word? They seem to just like have something like that and they'll be happy because they don't really want to burrow. They'll just stick out in the open. But humid species like P.Fortis, I'm trying to think what else. P.Fortis and Phimictopus and in Emphis, they seem to do a lot better in these because I like to dig a bit. Even if they don't, it's still a lot better. Plus, the ventilation on these are absolutely perfect. And if I'm honest, even if like something like that, your dry species, if they don't burrow, they're not using the space, and they seem to be happy. Now, fair enough, if you want to give them some light, you go for it, but in my personal experience, like my Bomi doesn't burrow. My Brachypelma vagans before it died, that did perfectly fine. It didn't never really burrowed unless it was a small sling, but as it would get into juvie size, it just wasn't bothered. So yeah, just some advice. These do perfect. It's just a small Exoterra plastic tank, and they do perfect for large species juvies up to maybe sub-adult. Think about either upgrading them to something like a medium flat or medium tall Exoterra, depending if it does burrow a lot. Generally, they lose the burrowing tendencies as they get bigger, but as juvies they seem to like to burrow. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I've been gassing a bit. But yeah, this is the little male that will be bred with my female when he matures, which will be a very long time, but I don't mind. Okay, so people, bye. Okay, this is a little bit an extra thing. I wouldn't usually show this, but basically all I'm doing, I think I've shown it once before. As you can see, it's getting a bit flooded in the bottom of my slinged enclosure. So all I do really is take out the soil and give them some fresh. The A.Atrox I'm just doing because if I'm doing both now, they'll last ages. Because that P.Fortis is just alright at the moment. Because I know a lot of people who leave it like that, so there's a pool in the bottom for them to drink from. Not deep enough that they're going to drown, but it's a tiny little pool. But I'm just gonna basically all I'm gonna do is take the soil out, give them fresh. It'll take me about 5 minutes, but I'm gonna show you just what I do. This is the only problems with using vials, as you can't really add ventilation, which is a pain in the ass. So yeah, I'm just going to sort these out and I'll be back in a sec. I'll show you them both while they're in the vial, while I'm sorting them out, so yeah, back in a sec. So all I do is I lay it on this side, basically I lift it up to the side like that and tempt them in. It's usually really easy. And you get to see the tea, especially when the little slings, you don't see them too often. But this is my Canvas Scurrier A.Atrox sling, and it's doing perfectly fine. Very, very tiny, but I think it's a second install. So yeah, really small, probably the smallest I've ever had. It is growing a lot since it's 8, because it's actually first 8 in my care because it was freshly malted into a second install. First installs can't eat, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that, I'm sure I'm correct, but yeah. So pretty happy about that, doing really well. So I'll just put it back down, I'll just basically take the soil out and put it back in. Okay, I'm back in a sec. And you can see it just there, all I do is spray on side a tiny bit and it soaks the tiny bit of the bottom of the substrate, but not by much. But yeah, it's a bit hard to keep the humidity up in slings enclosures and give them water. It's really awkward because you can only add ventilation to the top. But yeah, it's doing perfectly fine. My first ever second install, well, I think my beef wagons were freshly malted, either second or third install because that was really small like this. But yeah, it's doing perfectly fine. But yeah, we'll leave that be and we'll move on to the next one. Back in a sec. I've actually decided I'm just going to rehouse this one because it's a decent size and it'll give it more brewing space and it'll be a lot easier to maintain. And the bottom won't flood this time because it's all ventilated. So yeah, I'll be back in a second, and basically this is just going to go straight into the tub, so just see it straight in the new tub. Okay, back in a sec. I'm so glad these are not Holopheli species because it did make it basically did a lap of the enclosure, then jumped out. That's why I always keep a spare. When it's adults, I keep a catch cup. When it's slings, I'll just keep a pill vial or whatever they're called, spidling vial, and all I do is whatever way the tea is facing, you put it in front of it and you just tempt it in like that and you'll usually run straight in, no problem. And that's all I did with that one, and that saved me an escapee. They are a dwarf, so they are pretty quick, but nothing out of the ordinary, to be fair. Not as fast as Holopheli's, from what I've just noticed. Not too bad, to be fair, but a really nice dwarf species, and this one's doing really well in my care. So suspect pre-malt as well, so if I'm correct it'll just make a burrow and malt, so it might actually get some colouring, and you'll be shocked that these look like mini B. Amelias. I think, yeah, I think it's B. Amelia. Basically it has a black triangle on the carapace. These look awesome. So if you Google Cryptojomus Puriscal, there's like one picture of it and they look awesome. So I'm really glad I've got this. But yeah, that was just a little sling video and a rehouse of my P.Fortis. So yeah, some bit people, bye.